Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today, as we work up to the RE Bar Camp One Coast event January 26th here in St. Augustine, I have one of the exciting facilitators with me. He is the CEO and founder of The Locker Room Real Estate Coaching and Training Company. The sports reference comes from his days as a collegiate and professional baseball player. He has a site agent been a site agent for a builder, a CEO team leader with Keller Williams and production coach, where he's considered one of the top in the nation in 2016. He enjoys working with agents with less than 2 years experience and bringing their business to another level. In 21 and 22, he was considered a top 50 real estate coaches in the nation. Success Magazine considers him a top 25 trendsetter in real estate. He deeply is invested with each of his students. Let's welcome Jake Dixon to the show.
Awesome to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it.
Jake, I appreciate you coming on. And like I said, I want everyone, that goes to RE Bar Camp, because I think most of our listeners and the reels will cut from this and get stuff so they know a little bit about you and hopefully run into you in the hallway and ask you a little bit deeper about locker room, because I know some people here that are involved in your program and the changes that you're making and the trendsetter, right? It's a trendsetter award. So as I always kick off every show, tell us a little bit about Jake. Where'd you grow up? And then you ended up going here locally to UNF.
Sure did. Yeah. Well, thank you again. And so I grew up in Illinois from a really, really small town. We had 700 people in my town, no stoplights, no restaurants, no nothing. And we had 5 small towns merged together to create one high school where we had 200 kids total in it. So I'm from the middle of nowhere, but I always had a passion for baseball. And so, as you just alluded, I had a scholarship offer from, of all places, UNF. So a large percentage of my formidable years as a young adult growing up were spent in Jacksonville and St. Augustine. So I have deep roots there. Looking forward to getting back there for Rebar Camp and pouring into everybody.
Don't say Rebar with Kim Knapp listening, because
what is it?
It's RE Bar Camp. Just to let you know.
RE Bar Camp.
RE Bar Camp. Yeah, if you call it Rebar, she'll fall off the chair. Yeah.
Oh, geez. Well, okay. Looking forward to.
I had her on a year ago before last year. We had to make that. She had to correct me on the show. So go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, I've heard other people say it, so I just adopted it and rolled with it.
But yes, it is a natural.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was there playing ball at UNF for from 2001 to 2006. In fact, where the event RE Bar Camp is being held is a mile or two away from where I had a house. I had a house right there off of International Gulf Parkway. And so anyways, looking forward to it. And now I am, as you said, running a real estate coaching company where we partner with real estate brokerages and their agents all across North America.
Excellent. So I want to dig in, because I think a little bit of my assumption is, by looking at your resume basically on LinkedIn, which I do with all the guests, kind of get a picture. At one time, you're involved in baseball at UNF. You had a brief professional highlight there. The coaching part of it did you, at that young age, were you visualizing yourself maybe like becoming a baseball coach at that time? What was your vision of a career during that time period?
Not at all. I always saw myself as a player, never, ever crossing my mind to be a coach. And here's what happened later in life that I realized. And so, quick story. It was my sophomore year of high school. I know, sophomore, right? Big whoop-de-doo. But for me, it was a big deal. And I encountered, I'd say, one of the most significant defining moments of my life that year as a sophomore. And what happened was, it was the second inning of a playoff baseball game, and a Midwest thunderstorm blew through, and lightning, thunder, the whole bit. And so the umpires ended up calling the game off and postponing it for another day. Well, coach was not so happy, and he was ranting and raving and yelling at us players to get the equipment up and run inside of the gym to get out of everything. And so we were probably lollygagging around. I don't remember, but he increasingly got more and more upset. Okay. Well, by the time we got into the gym, he sits us all down and he's yelling at us and screaming. And at one point, he puts his finger right in my face in front of all my teammates. And he said, "None of you will ever see the inside of a college or professional stadium unless you buy a ticket." Those were his words verbatim. The guy who's supposed to be championing me,
Right.
trying to poo-poo on my dreams and stuff like that. And maybe he was right. After all, I'm from the middle of nowhere and I'm 6'6". You can't tell that right now, but I'm a big dude.
Right.
So through that, later in life, I remember driving in North Carolina, listening to an audiobook called The Storyteller's Secret. And I had shared my story and the end result of it at sports banquets at high schools and all these things. And that was always where that story stopped of na boo boo, I did it and proved you wrong. But until I listened to that book, to your question, it hit me. I said, the real gift inside of that day wasn't, hey, I proved this guy wrong and saw some cool stadiums. It was he lit this freaking flame inside of me to never be that person to somebody else. So I never set out to be a coach. I just have this unapologetic passion to serve other people and bring out the best in them. So I never stand there in front of somebody else and say they're not worthy or they can't achieve something that's important to them.
That you don't know how much that resonates with me right now. Just I mean, and I had a basketball was my thing, and if there's any one person that, but he was more in a positive way, but in a way they like to fire under you. Although he coached like Bobby Knight, I always tell because that's the way I coach basketball. I'm more of a Bobby Knight type style basketball coach because we see the potential in others and we really want them to do well, whatever little bit it is. And really, and then of course the coaching comes in where I'm sure, like you said, like, hey, this week, this is what we need to focus on. And you help them with that in the coaching. But that was one thing my high school basketball coach said is that I should become a coach. Now I've gotten back involved in it because my son's playing basketball now and I'm starting to see it, that I probably should have spent more time doing it throughout my career, but it's bounced me all over. But everything you say resonates there. And I think about getting cut. I got cut from my middle school baseball team and I kind of ended my baseball career at that point. And it doesn't need to end that day. And just because you had a bad day yesterday or even bad days up to today, you can actually change it. And that's the perfect example. Lit the fire under you. That's a great story. So you're playing, you're out in California. If I saw you're out in Anaheim playing professional ball, you get hurt again. If I read that correctly. So I don't know what you could tell us what happens there and then what's going on in your mind that day and where you're going to go next.
Yeah, well, that inspired me to write a keynote that I delivered a couple of years ago for the state of South Carolina's annual Realtor Conference. And it's turning your defining moments into your superpowers. And that is one of the stories I used that your question hits on. And I distinctly remember it was July 4th, 2006, the last time I threw a pitch. And we were out in Idaho Falls, Idaho, playing in minor league ball. And I remember being in that game, throwing a pitch, and I felt the ligament in my arm tear, and I knew that familiar feeling because it had happened to me a couple of years prior. And I'll never forget once the bus got back to our hotel, I had always observed that our manager, our coach, was always the last one off the bus. He sat at the very front, always the last one off the bus. All the players get off first. So I sat there as all my friends and teammates get off the bus, knowing that. So I'm the last guy. And I walk up to coach and I look down at him and I said, Coach, do you have a second to talk? And he pauses, he looks up at me and he says, it's your arm, isn't it? I said, yeah. And I just broke down, grown man, ugly cry. I'm not ashamed to admit it because I had always promised myself I wasn't going to get a second surgery. And so to make a long story short, I remember being outside of the hotel room, curled up in the fetal position against the wall for hours, just going through this identity crisis, almost like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
And for a couple of years, I was very bitter and resentful towards the sport of baseball and all this and that. And yet looking back again, it's always in hindsight. What I realize is I can have faith over fear. Both are believing in something that you cannot see. So you have a choice. Which is it? And baseball was not my identity. My performance was not who I was, but the character and the lessons and the principles that the sport, the game of failure, taught me. I have now since carried into the business world to work for me rather than against me, because I was a victim. I was throwing my little pity party as a victim, and once I got over my ego and got over myself to pick up the bootstraps and move forward, I've decided to use that to my advantage in what I do today. And so, in a weird, twisted way, I'm grateful that the injury happened, um, because it's made me who I am, and I have a lot of lessons and stories that I've been able to pass on to others because of it.
I had a brief, I guess you want to say, we'll call it an argument. I call it a discussion with my wife's uncle over the Christmas break, and we were watching college football and stuff going on, the bowl games and that kind of thing. And he was talking about how, oh, these guys, you know, you know, they should give up on sports. They should just focus on the academics. These kids shouldn't be playing sports. They should just be studying and so forth. But I said to him, I said, hold on, I think agree or disagree with me here. Today, these kids more than ever, I'm off the real estate subject a little bit, but these kids more than ever need to be involved in something where they're dealing with some form of diversity, where maybe they do get cut from the team or you obviously lose a game, those types of miss a shot, strike out, whatever it may be. And it helps them. As I imagine, you probably deal with some of your clients in this way, that some of them may have never dealt with adversity in their entire life, where there's others who, maybe played sports, even if it was just at the middle school or high school level or rec level, but they have dealt with adversity. I mean, I personally I graduated from the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina. I personally went there because I wanted the challenge. I don't think I would have graduated from a regular college if there was this challenge in the structure and overcoming adversity there every day in the life, and how important that is. And I think what you're telling me, these adversities have only made you stronger and better at what you do today.
No question. I will agree, not just because I'm the guest on your show, but because and you know what? I think Tracy, has everything to do with real estate. And I'll tie that in, and here's why. So first of all, if an individual's first exposure to adversity or failure, whatever you want to call that, is picking up the phone, asking somebody in your database if they know somebody looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, and they hit you with that ugly word called no, and you just crumble, and that's the end of you. This is not, I mean, we say here at the locker room, real estate is a contact sport. It's time to get your jersey dirty. You got to go make contacts, have conversations. You can't be afraid of that word no, right? So I think sports or whatever, it doesn't have to be sports, but just growing up, what positioning have you found yourself in to overcome objection, overcome a rejection, overcome failures, adversities? And I think that has everything to do with it. And that's why I love baseball. And how it ties into real estate is because baseball is the game of failure. It is the only sport that I can think of where the defense is actually in control of the ball. Every other sport, the offense is in control of the ball.
Oh,
In
I
this
never
sport,
thought
the
about that way.
defense. No wonder 3 out of 10 successful attempts put you in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so here's how I'll tie that in. I'm sorry to get long-winded, but
Mm-hmm.
I used to run an indoor baseball training facility before I got back into real estate. For 3 years, I would work with young kids, teaching them the lessons in how to properly play the game of baseball, focusing on the fundamentals, if you will. And I remember several years ago watching the home run derby at All-Star break, and big Pete Alonso from the New York Mets ended up winning the derby that year. In the middle of the home run derby, the camera finds him underneath the stadium in the batting cage tunnel, hitting a ball off of a stupid tee. And when I'm working with 12-year-olds, they're like, come on, coach, I got to hit a ball off a tee. That's T-ball stuff. Come on, let's get to the live pitching. And I'm like, no, because what I know and you don't know is the dudes you see on TV making millions of dollars a year literally put a ball on a tee every day, take 300 to 500 swings because they're not above it. They're mastering the fundamentals. Now, here's the lesson of how I translate that into real estate. I've got agents who don't want to make 5 contacts a day. They don't want to put the ball on the tee because they think they're above it and they want to be creative instead, right? And I stress to the baseball players, just as I stress to real estate agents, check this out. The game does not change. The game just speeds up. The same way I would teach a kid to hold a bat or grip a baseball in Little League when they're throwing 55 miles an hour at you is the same way those guys are doing it on TV. They're just throwing 95 miles an hour at you instead now. In real estate, the same thing it takes to close 12 homes per year is the exact same thing it takes to close 112 homes per year. The game does not change. The game just speeds up. So sometimes we just need to accept the boredom that's associated with mastery and repetition, because success, however you might define that, is not always sexy. It's just boring and repetition a lot of the time.
Right.
But if that means putting you in the Hall of Fame, I'd say it's worth it.
Yeah, that's awesome right there. And we're gonna get some good sound bites. I do cut reels from these, and these will be some great stuff in there. Let's step back a little bit because give everyone a background as we lead up to the RE Bar Camp. So you start working at Keller Williams, I assume up in the Midwest, if I looked at the LinkedIn correctly. What brought real estate into your game plan?
Yeah. So at the time, I had just moved back, as I mentioned, to run an indoor baseball training facility after living in Northeast Florida. I wanted my first crack at entrepreneurship, and that's what it was. And so while I was running this indoor baseball training facility, I got the itch. I'm a entrepreneur, opportunist, to get my real estate license again. And I was just going to hang it and just dabble. Well, probably like you, Tracy, I don't know how to dabble in anything. Okay. So once I got my license, I found quick success. I sold, actually, literally the next day, I sold my very first home. Well, the owner of this real estate franchise that I was associated with observed my participation during new agent training and saw that I had sold a home and kind of knew some of my background of running a couple businesses before that. So she calls me and says, Jake, I want to interview you to be the team leader. I'm like, what? I'm the new guy. I've sold one home. Where's the hidden camera?
Right.
So we proceeded down that road. I ended up getting the role and doing a lot of great things in that office, which afforded me an opportunity to move my family down south to North Carolina to be a part of a top 20 office in the world for this particular franchise. And so I was a team leader there. And during that stint is when I found my true calling, my real passion, which was the coaching element. But that's how I got kind of reintroduced to real estate, away from me selling in Jacksonville and St. Augustine with Lennar Homes, which is who I was affiliated with in new construction.
Right. So she makes you a team lead. You'd only sold one home. What is it she saw there? I mean, and did you have any sort of mentor or someone that could mirror off of, or coach to help you with that?
No, I wish I could say I did. What I would say, and what she had shared with me, is part of the story I didn't share is I had also grown a sizable, for lack of a better term, downline or organization within network marketing. Like, I was the guy that said, that's a pyramid scheme. I was hating on it so much.
Right.
But my best friend, he's actually in Northeast Florida, very well-known agent, talked me into it finally. And so I developed a massive organization, which is where I cut my teeth, I guess, on leadership, on recruiting, on managing and serving a big team. And so I had that track record coming into this role where a team leader's primary responsibilities is exactly that. Instead of me slinging milkshakes and health products, it was now real estate was the only difference. But what I had been doing, whether I knew it or not, was actually grooming me for that leadership type opportunity.
Because I've had several agents on the show, of the 150 some that I've had on, that had been in the multi-level marketing campaign, because the best multi-level marketing companies are big on personal development, and their training and everything. That's where a lot of the guys make their money, is they're selling their training and coaching and so forth. And to step into real estate with that same kind of mindset is huge as well, because whether it's EXP, or you're building a Keller Williams team or whatever it is, if you're able, obviously, to sell the opportunity, you're able to coach them up, they're able to see some success, you can, sky's the limit.
100% exactly spot on. It's been my experience, and other people like Josh, who's there in your area, had a network marketing, direct sales background, and it just, the transferable skills into it make a big difference. And I won't necessarily mean to get on this bigger of a topic, but this is why. Here's a soundbite for you, I guess. Unpopular opinion, maybe. My stance is, when we say things or we hear quotes that success lives outside your comfort zone, I just fundamentally disagree with that. Whoever said that, Wayne Dyer or somebody way smarter than me, God love them, I don't subscribe to that. I understand, so maybe I'm playing semantics a little bit, but here is my hot take on that. Instead of success living outside your comfort zone being what we adopt as a belief system, I believe success lives by expanding your strength zone. Well, what is my strength zone? I have a whole graphic, and it's this bullseye. That's all of your transferable skills, your natural behavioral style, your past experiences, that instead of discounting them, you reflect on them and say, how can I leverage this into what I'm doing now? It's all these things that make this unique recipe called you. And instead of worrying about all the crap that I'm not great at, focus on the 2 or 3 or maybe 4 things that you're incredibly naturally talented at. And I work with so many agents who wake up and say, well, what's wrong with me, coach? I'm not motivated. No, BS. Yes, you are. There's not a single person on planet Earth, I believe, that God put here who's unmotivated. You really think people enjoy waking up every day failing or not putting up a goose egg on the scoreboard? Come on. Stop labeling people. Sometimes as leaders and coaches, our job is to align their interests and natural passions and talents with something like lead generation, so they don't wake up every day wanting to stab their eyes out. They actually kind of have fun and look forward to quote unquote lead generation, which, by the way, agents, that is just sales language that freaks you out. How about this? Lead generation and prospecting is just going out and making friends, being a normal human being that has a quality service to provide to others, that can make a profitable business. That's honorable. Stop making it weird, man. Lead generation, what is that? Just go talk to people and make friends. How about them apples?
Well, I mean, just because you're talking about this, subject here, or this line or elephant in the room, whatever you want to call it, right now. Would you say, I mean, one of the biggest factors of agents dropping out or agents finding that success beyond the 2 years is finding that whatever it is that they like doing, that they can get out of bed in the morning and say, oh, I enjoy going and doing that. And obviously reaping some return on investment, getting business from what they enjoy doing.
That is a large percentage of what I spend my waking hours doing when I'm coaching.
Mm-hmm.
First, what is success to you? My fear is, because by the way, most people can't define that. What does success mean to you?
Yeah.
My fear is most people identify success with how much money is in their bank account. Really? Is that it? Because how many successful actors and famous people do you see who end up making some poor decisions, taking their life, that they had all the money in the world and yet everything else was empty? So if your only definition of success, I guess who am I to judge, is how much money you have, let us coach you a little deeper on that. Okay. So step 1 is, what does success mean to you? And now I go back to my original statement. Does your version of success really have to live outside of your comfort zone? Give me a break. Get clear on what success means to you. Then let's align your natural gifts and talents and experiences and bottle those all up of what lead generation, what follow-up, what marketing looks like for you.
Mm-hmm.
and tie that into a business plan of how that's going to achieve your version of success.
Moving along, not to because you and I we could talk for a long time.
I get fired up on
Just
this,
trying to
man. I'm
keep this
sorry.
under an hour, and what my because you're putting a lot of deep thoughts. And to be honest with you, I don't know how long you're going to be in town for that day, but I would love to if we had breakfast or lunch or something, because I've
Make
got
it
some
happen.
thoughts going through my head and some of the things that you talked about pre-show in spinning, because that. Obviously you saw, first thing you said to me is that you look like a, I look like a podcaster. I look, and I do have a lot of passion for doing this. And that's why it's kept on, because if you don't have a passion, you want to start a podcast, you'll be like everybody, 5 episodes and you're done, because you're not, so you have to have a passion and love what you're doing. And I haven't learned how to twist this into my mortgage world. So I want to just chat a little bit with you on that.
I have some ideas for you on that already. Yep.
You have there's a quote in here, and I can't remember if I took this off your Facebook or LinkedIn. It was probably your LinkedIn. If you help enough people get what they want, you'll get everything you want.
Zig
Expand
Ziglar.
on that and how you build that into your coaching, because I could see your passion, but I also know you have you're not doing all the coaching yourself. You have your coaching coaches in your organization, because it's the only way you can grow. How do you instill that in them, or when you're bringing them on, you're looking to see if they already have that in them?
That's exactly right. I'm a fierce protector of that. And by the way, to give credit where credit's due, that's a Zig Ziglar quote. Most people have heard that, obviously. And let me go back to the quote. The one word of that really jumps out at me is enough. Help enough people get what they want, and you'll have everything you want, right? So I ask myself, am I helping enough people?
Yeah.
And then I ask myself further questions. Well, who are my people? In other words, who's my ideal client, the ideal audience that I want to serve, because I'm just unapologetically passionate about them, right? And so you begin to reverse engineer that stuff, and every agent listening to this can do the same thing. It's okay to serve whoever has a need to buy and sell a home, right? But if you're not clear about who your target demographic really is, first-time home buyers, military, whatever, your messaging is going to be all over the place. And something that liberated me was from Simon Sinek. Some of you know who Simon Sinek is, author, speaker. He said, the goal in business is not to do business with everyone who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with those who believe what you believe. And that was so liberating for me when I first heard that, because I was trying to
say that again. Say that again.
Of course.
Yeah.
The goal in business is not to do business with everyone who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with those who believe what you believe. See, everybody needs an amazing loan officer. Everybody needs, I believe, incredibly professional real estate agent. But that's not the point. Work with your people. Work with the ones who value what you value. You're not for everybody, and everybody's not for you, and that's okay. There's plenty of opportunity out there for all, right? So anyways, that begs the question, who am I meant to serve, right? And then am I helping enough of them, back to Zig Ziglar's quote? And so how I instill that throughout our organization, I have written standard vision, mission, belief, and value statements. And I attract people to that. It's not that I'm right and they're wrong if we don't align on those things, but I figure, you know what? Most of my waking hours is spent working. I'm going to do something I love, and I'm going to do it with people I enjoy being with. Like, I'm not sorry for that. I'm not the coaching company for everybody, and I don't want to be. I happily refer to other coaching companies and friends if I know I'm not the right organization for them. That's okay. That's abundance,
Right.
And so I know I'm rambling a little bit. Yet the point is,
well, you tip on some really great things there, and it's spinning through my mind. I don't know if you know Krista Mashore.
Oh, yeah.
She's a successful real estate agent now. She's out selling her marketing strategies out there. She talks about like working, she works like a half a dozen neighborhoods. I mean, just, she is those neighborhood experts, knows everything going on in there, putting out the social media and marketing to those homes. And I think a lot of, I think, well, in sales in general, we often say, well, yeah, everyone wants to buy a home, so they must all be my clients, but they're really not. That you really do need to find that very finite niche of, whether it's a neighborhood or, or it's St. Augustine, whatever it is, and become the expert. I think the neighborhoods are one thing, because generally people migrate to each other who are like-minded. We may not all agree on something, but there's something in common that we all have when we live in a similar neighborhood. And maybe, I know my neighborhood is full of kids because there's great schools, right? So that is a commonality. We all are raising families, type of thing. But whatever that is, like you said, the military, and really focus on that, there's enough business in any one of those sectors to feed you and your family and many others for a long period of time, if you really focus in and be the expert in that area. Is that kind of what you're saying?
It's 100%. You said it better than me. 100% what I'm getting at. We need to have guiding principles and stop being a culture of apologizing. I'm not getting on politics when I say that,
Mm-hmm.
but stop. For example, in your scripting agents, stop saying just. I'm just calling to check in. I'm just following up. Stop saying just. That's apologetic language. No, damn it. I'm calling you, and here's what I'm calling you for.
Right.
And so one of the guiding principles, and I'll leave it here, I guess, on back to your original question,
Mm-hmm.
is for us as an organization, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's somebody else's famous quote. I just take it and adopt it, right?
Theodore Roosevelt, I think, was accredited that one. I'm not if I've seen it. I think I actually have it somewhere on a little frame. I haven't hung it up in my new office here, but yeah.
But it's true. And we say these cutesy quotes, but when you kind of tie other ones together, so I could take, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And then I can tie it back into, well, people don't remember what you say, people remember how you make them feel.
Yeah.
That's another popular quote. So when I merge things like that, it starts to make sense. And I can actually apply that to how I go about my relationships and conducting of the business, versus it being just like a Bible quote or anything like that, where I just bust it out when I need to. Live by it.
So I had a great top Keller Williams agent, Sophie Gordon, on with Keller Williams Atlantic Partners here in town the other day, and young lady in her mid-20s, only been in the business 3 years. Of course, we talked about how it was easy for her initially, because everyone that she talked to wanted to buy a home or sell a home in 21. It made it easy, but she took the time, which was really feeds right into what you're talking about, that she tries to make, she tries to make a friendship, or if it's not a friendship, that she introduces them to other people, which is one of John Maxwell's thing, how to influence other people is introducing to other people. But to build that continuing advocates and friends, she tries to have, whether it's go out and have, girls' night with one of her clients, but she brings a friend to introduce him, or a former client, but just continuing to build that circle that you're talking about in the relationships. And now you have all these advocates out there that if anyone says anything about real estate, hey, you got to call Sophie. And that's what it's a very, I wouldn't say it's a recent common theme. It's been a common theme, but it's been really highlighted lately in everyone that I'm talking to. What do you think are the biggest challenges that you're seeing with your clients coming on? The biggest challenges for real estate agents today that aren't necessarily thriving as they would like to?
I could distill that down maybe into one word, even though I would have a lot to say about that subject. I would say the one word, at least for now, is consistency. They're struggling with consistency, time on task over time. And just as we said earlier, being okay with the repetition of things and not getting overly creative. I go back to something we heard when we were children. A couple of things, actually. all of you listening to this right now could probably fill in the blank. What does the doctor say? An apple a day keeps the away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We know an apple a day keeps the doctor away. He or she did not say, eat 7 apples on Sunday. It's the same amount, Jake. No,
Right.
you're missing the point. It's
Right.
not procrastination and then I'm going to make 100 contacts to my database on Sunday. I'd rather you make 10 a day and get that muscle memory built up, just like if you were lifting weights in the gym, so it becomes second nature to you. Some of us need to create a rhythm before we can establish a habit. My sister runs 10 miles every morning, and she's the type of person that if she misses that, she would say her day feels off.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I've never been that type of person who enjoys
No,
going
me
to the
either.
gym.
I wish I could run like that. Wish I could run a mile a day.
That's sick, right? But isn't that the point?
Yeah.
She created such a habit, such a rhythm, a muscle memory that if she doesn't do it, she feels off.
And
And so
also,
that
you know, for
consistency,
using
that
a little sports analogy with that whole thing, you know, if you're trying to make 100 calls in a day, you are not going to be very good. It's like, you know, swinging the bat so many times or hitting the golf club so many times. When you start to get up too high and your arms get tired, you don't do it as well.
That's right.
And you start making mistakes, and your muscle memory is affected by that, by what you did in the first 20 swings. The next 20 swings, now you're starting to get tired and it's not as good. By breaking it down into small bites, you stay fresh and stay sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a training called the 5 to 25 challenge. Here's basically, and it takes me an hour to deliver it. Here it is in 30 seconds. I go through this formula with every real estate agent and show them mathematically. Math is not emotional. Math does not show favorites. It doesn't care what political party you're associated with. Math is just math. Okay. Make 5 contacts a day for 5 days a week for 50 weeks out of the year. Do the math. That's 1,250 real estate conversations. I'm even giving you weekends off and 2 weeks off for holidays. Okay. 1,250. Now, for the lesser experienced, newer agents, I have tracked this for 8 consecutive years. I dare you to test me on it. That for every 50 conversations, it will ultimately yield you 1 new piece of business. So, Jake, what's 1,250 times 2%? Because 50 to 1, 2%. That's 25 sales, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations, you are now in the top 3%, according to NAR, of producers in the entire NAR population, because you were willing to apply time on task over time and allow the compound effect to take over. This is the other example I was going to give earlier from our childhood. Some of you know this trick question. Have you ever asked or been asked, hey, would you rather have a penny that doubles every day for 30 consecutive days, or would you rather have $1 million cash money right now? Now, most people who aren't familiar with this would say, give me the cash. Hello, it's $1 million. Why?
Yeah.
Because they want the instant gratification. We live in this Pop-Tart society where we have cell phones and all these things that we want it now. We're spoiled little brats. And yet, did you know that a penny that doubles every day for 30 consecutive days is almost $5.4 million on day 30? But it's not even until day 20 or 21, I believe, when you hit 5 figures.
Right.
So the analogy is most real estate agents get started, they're in that honeymoon phase, and they do something, and then they stop and say, see, that doesn't work. Open houses don't work. Doing this or that, the other thing doesn't work. No, you didn't work long enough to allow that compound effect. And every time you break that cycle, you're back at 0. You're back at the penny. Just keep going.
I imagine, you could talk a little bit about kind of maybe some of the clients that are coming in now and getting started in your programs. The one, they don't have that long term, but also they are, as natural humans, we try to measure ourselves to others, but we have to keep reminding ourselves, and it's some of the things that social media, some of the personal development that we're seeing on social media, don't measure yourself to someone else who you don't know what their background was. You don't know that, hey, their father, uncle, whatever, just has this huge network, and they introduced them to him. So all of a sudden they started selling houses right away, where you might, go your first whatever amount of time before you even sell your first house. That you have to measure and really kind of like playing golf. It's all about competing against yourself every day.
100% right. And that's why I said earlier, everybody needs to get clear on what your definition of success is. That's the point. Because knowing yours is different from mine, it no longer makes any sense that I'm looking at my neighbor to my left and right, comparing myself to them. Run your own race, like that. If a lot of you have seen over social media that picture years ago where it's Michael Phelps swimming and he beats this guy just by a fingernail, but the other guy that shot caught the other swimmer looking at Michael Phelps. And it said something like, winners focus on themselves, losers focus on someone else or the winners, or whatever the quote of that was.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. What do you want? Why do you want it? Establish the strength zone and how you're going to achieve it. And then who cares? I coached $150 million a year team out of Arizona several years ago. $150 million of volume. I coached the team lead. You know something? You wouldn't want to trade places. He's the guy on stage that you're comparing yourself to, saying, oh, I wish I could be that someday. Really? You don't know what I don't know. Or you don't know what I know. Because when I coached him, dude was broke as a joke. His business was in the red because he overspent and yada, yada, yada. You don't know the very person you might be comparing yourself to. Let's compare balance sheets. Let's compare P&Ls. Let me look at your budget. You don't know what they're netting. You just see the big volume in GCI and feel inferior because of that. This is one of the only industries that the awards that we get is for more, 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 more. Where's the awards that people get to cross stages at real estate conferences because they delivered amazing service? We don't celebrate that stuff.
Right. All right. So break down a little bit for me, or because in some of the things you enjoy these kind of somewhat experienced agents, just haven't reached their peak yet. They're still in it in the first 2 years, but you also are, working with some of these higher level, like this team lead as well. Is that correct?
100%. That is correct. We there's two aspects to the locker room. One of which is we work largely with real estate broker owners, people in leadership positions, growing and developing them and their organizations through the leadership channel. And then we have obviously the agent aspect of things, where we have one-on-one coaching, group coaching, membership options for agents. And it just depends on where they're at in their journey and what value they're seeking right there. We have, for $57 a month, our agent breakthrough community. That is perfect for agents who are newer, lesser experienced within their first 2 years. And then again, depending on their situation, we have one-on-one coaching that they can hire any one of our coaches to work with them on a one-on-one capacity.
When you're working with the leadership, are you trying to, well, there's a little bit of I guess sounds like you do talk a little bit about financials, because this guy, like you said, they were doing $150 million, but he wasn't taking much home. He was, whether they were, spending money buying leads or all the other places, all the little flashes of trinkets and trash that are thrown in front of us that, spend money here, you'll get more, more, more. Are you working with them on the financial side of things, as well as obviously trying to develop them as better coaches and leaders for their agents?
That's exactly right. We focus on 4 pillars on the agent and or leadership business. So we built this wheel exercise where we assess the health and viability of their business. It's a part of our locker room success system, which is our coaching framework that we use. Okay. So the 4 main pillars are growth, productivity, profitability, and systems. So whether you're an agent or a leader, those are the 4 main pillars. And within each pillar, we have 3 categories, kind of like a piece of a pie, if you imagine a wheel. So there's 12 categories total. Each quadrant has 3 categories within it. of growth, productivity, profitability, and systems. So every 90 days, we will utilize this exercise to do a health check, right? We're going to look under the hood. It's very subjective. So if I'm working with Tracy, I'm going to say, okay, Tracy, it's day 90. Let's pause and look back at the last 90 days. Where are we now? On a scale of 1 to 10, rank yourself here. And we do that for all 12 categories so we can quantify progress and have meaningful discussions of where were we 90 days ago and where do you see yourself now and what are we going to do moving forward for the next 90-day sprint.
Systems.
We
can elaborate on the importance of it there, but when you said that, it triggered a question that I had thought of earlier, because you've been deep into the locker room since I think 2016. Is that correct? Yeah. So over that period of time, I imagine through like anything we do, and a lot of agents do, and hopefully you're dulling that learning curve, of some trial and error in some things. What are some things that you were coaching, whether it's the leaders or the agents, maybe in 16, 17, and 18, that you'll realize all of a sudden things are changing, social media, as our life changes, or maybe you weren't really doing it really well in 16 or 17 and said, hey, hold on a second, we need to take this to another level and we need to change this aspect of our coaching.
So here's something that immediately hit my mind, so I'll just speak to it when you ask that question. So if I have a coaching superpower, it's taking a set of data, like agents who track their numbers and submit their numbers sort of thing, and I can tell a story from this set of data. I can diagnose your business, right? Just like a doctor, what do they say? Prescription without proper diagnosis is malpractice.
Right.
And I think a lot of real estate coaches practice malpractice because they come in there and they're actually just professional advice givers instead of trying to understand the person's business, where they're at now, blah, blah, blah. So something that has evolved over the years is, just because that was my style, this was a gut kind of ego check. What I quickly found was a lot of other leaders or coaches didn't really care. Like, just because I coached by the numbers didn't mean that I could make them coach by the numbers. And the lesson was, I was investing an insane amount of money to develop a software. I thought I would be smart and hire web developers to take what I was using through a very fancy Google Sheets tracking system that we just organically made ourselves, and turn that into a web app. Well, a couple $100,000 or so later, I have nothing to show for it because I pulled the plug on it a couple of years ago and said, screw that. Like, I'm not developing software. So it's still my style, but what I have learned is my style is not the way. It's a way. And it doesn't make me a better or worse coach than the other 16 coaches that we have at the locker room or anybody else. It's just my style, my methodology. And so I still use that with my personal clientele, but I'm not forcing that so much on other people. Now, granted, yes, there are still key KPIs that are standard that we're going to track, but I took it to a crazy level that most people just didn't either relate with or care about. That makes sense.
Well, it does. You're a baseball guy. If there's not one thing about baseball fanatics, is they know the stats.
That's it.
How many pitches are thrown, how many strikes, you're a pitcher, right? So they know how many pitches you're good for a game, and before you start to decline. And if you I guarantee they know if you haven't thrown enough strikes by your 30, 40th pitch, that you're probably not having a good day. Right. So that does not surprise me. I think the stats for everyone else, and not to say everyone else, but those who are not stat oriented, generally, obviously, aren't attentive to track it. And then obviously they don't feel comfortable, although I think I can look at stats and be able to make a comment on them, as you are able to analyze stats and coach from it, that the average person, whether they're fear of numbers or whatever it is, doesn't feel they're strong enough to be able to look at these numbers and be able to say, hey, based on this over the last few months, you're not doing enough of that, type of thing, which, you and I would look at that and say anyone could do that, but maybe they just don't feel comfortable doing it, whatever it is. But I agree with you. I think it starts off with obviously keeping track, and obviously a lot of coaches will tell you, yeah, you got to keep stats. I mean, again, back to baseball, a friend of mine, he's a scout for the Braves. I mean, he's looking at that stuff all day long. I could tell him, hey, there's this high school player, it's really doing really well. I mean, 24 hours later, he's right back to me telling me, hey, yeah, he's not hitting enough home runs.
Yeah,
So
no,
he's not on
exactly.
anybody's radar yet, type of thing. So how important that is. In your coaches, to go back to, because I feel, I mean, are you constantly, not to a burden standpoint, but you have to adjust, or maybe actually I'm going to change this question to this. Each and every one of your coaching clients are coming to you from a different direction. How do you and your team analyze that? In case a possible customer may be listening to this,
Yeah.
how are you analyzing? What are some of those things you do initially to find out where they're at, to know where to take them?
Really great question. Thank you. We have a very thorough discovery process to identify where is their business now? Where do they desire it to be? What are the qualities, characteristics, style, methodology of a coach that they would feel most comfortable with? We have a slew of questions that basically creates this profile. And it goes back to finally, I guess what I'm saying, a few years ago, I decided to practice what I preach and allow my coaches to coach to their strength zone versus trying to make them adopt mine with the whole numbers and stuff like that. So once I have this profile through a very thorough discovery call process with the potential client, then I look at my coaches and say, okay, I believe, Sally, that you would work well with Brent and Mary Lou. So we don't assign coaches to the client. I make recommendations, get those parties connected, and then the potential client interviews them and ultimately gets to decide who they want to be their coach. It's a little different kind of
Interesting.
sleight of hand compared to how a lot of other coaching companies do it, where they assign you the coach. I don't believe in that. I want you to pick who you feel is the right fit for you. I will
Are
make
you
the
doing any
recommendation.
sort of disc assessment or anything like that on them, or is it
We
just
do.
more
Oh
of an
yeah.
interview conversation?
Yeah, but both. It's an interview conversation, and we have the disc that we largely lean on. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Interesting. Um, do you find some of them may make the wrong choice initially and maybe
Yeah.
don't see success after so many? I mean, you might have a time period, a little litmus test, so to speak, to find out did they make the right choice of coaches?
Yeah, that's that part of that discovery process. I take them through a set of expectation dialogue questions. How do we win with you? How do we lose with you? What would the win need to be in the next 90 days for you to be a raving fan? Like, we just flush it all out on the front end to avoid any of that false expectation or disappointment. But is it possible? Heck yeah, it's possible. At the
Mm,
end of the day, though, that's why I allow them to pick. We have 90-day checkpoints where we're calling and checking in. How's it going with your coach? Blah, blah, blah. And I say up front, hey, if any given time you're unhappy or you feel it's not the best fit, let me know, because we can always go back and offer up a couple of other coaches for you to interview and see if there's a better fit. It is possible that you will outgrow your coach, or that they serve the season you are in and now you're ready to move into a different season.
how do you set that up front? Because you're talking to agents who have coaches.
Yeah.
A lot of them have had them forever. There's a lot
Yeah.
of agents that obviously don't have any coach whatsoever, other than maybe someone in their brokerage who might, be a team lead or something of that nature.
Right.
When you're consulting that initial client on an initial call and what their goals are, is your vision, well, obviously as a business owner, you want them to be a client forever, but is there a time where you kind of run the end of the road, or are you constantly developing the next step
Mhm.
for them?
So again, this is where we lean on our system. The locker room success system is the standard that I ask all of our coaches to to run. It's a framework. It's not boxy, but it's a framework. The individual coach's personality and style can be used within that framework, you know? And so I share with them up front that basically, if there's ever a point where either you stop not respecting, but responding or respecting to your coach the way you know a coach should make you feel,
Mm-hmm.
that might be a sign that you've outgrown them or you're ready for a change. You know,
Mm-hmm. So I want to take that to this is a I
like,
found in interviewing
oh, you
150
froze.
plus agents, you with little technology good in interviewing 150 plus agents, there is that point, especially whether it's first 2 or 3 years, or if an agent's gradually growing, that eventually their business hits a lid, and it might be time for that first hire, or
Correct.
whether it's some sort of assistant or whatever. What is your evaluation of? You've seen this industry for 15 years. You're coaching and talking to a lot of different people, again coming from different areas. When as that agent approaches that lid, how do you help them make that next level? Because I'm sure you can attest to, they eventually don't have enough time in the day to do it all themselves, as some agents want to do.
Yes. There's a lot packed into that because it's so unique to the individual and what they said was their goal and definition of success. Here's what I'll say first. Just because you're a quote unquote top producer does not mean you have any business starting a team and hiring people. Stop it. You're going to hurt somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Leverage can come in different forms: people, tools, and systems. So instead of rushing to the people version of that and you're hiring this admin or VA and you have no freaking clue what you're doing, maybe there's another alternative that can bump you to the next level until you're ready to go down that leadership journey. If the only reason you're hiring somebody is to make more money or to have leverage, I'm not sure that's enough in my belief system. I think there's a third pillar, which is you have to enjoy developing and growing other people, which immediately means you have to be a leader. Just like in coaching, man, like just because you weren't the greatest player doesn't mean you're not an amazing coach.
Right.
And just because you were an amazing player doesn't by default mean you're a good coach. I'm living proof of that. I've sold one home in real estate. Okay. I'm technically not supposed to be doing what I'm doing, I guess.
Right.
So, where am I going with that? I think there's other things to explore, like transaction coordinators. I'm a huge fan of TCs. It's a pay as you go kind of thing. It's more of a cost of sale versus hiring somebody and everything that comes with that territory. VAs is another great way to dip your toes in, but clear is kind, unclear is unkind. If you don't know what you're hiring them for and you don't have a training plan, they don't know how they're going to win with you or what key performance indicators you're holding them accountable to. I could go on forever.
Right. Right.
I will first coach to that before I ever allow one of my clients, if it's up to me, to go hire somebody, because that's dangerous territory and somebody's livelihood that you're messing with.
Right. Well, to go back to, in our early part of our conversation, we were talking about, doing the things that you enjoy doing. So because you can get up out of bed. It's those things, eating the frog type of things that, oh God, I got to get up and do that today, type of thing. How important is it to success of some of these agents to outsource some of those things? Maybe not a hire, but like you're saying, like a transaction coordinator is paid by the deal. Or obviously leaning on their brokerage to, some of the brokerages have, support staff that can do some of the. How important is it in their growth to like be able to let loose some of those things that they don't like doing, that drag down their day, so they can do more of what they like doing that gets them a return?
If it aligns with their goals and their definition of success, then absolutely it's true that they need to relinquish control of some of those things that either bog them down, or because when we say yes to something, that means we're saying no to something else. What is it? If I'm saying yes to spending 2 hours creating that open house flyer, that means I'm saying no to either family time or lead generating, new business, whatever it could be.
Right.
And so there is that switch cost that you got to get really clear on. of what could I leverage out. And for most agents, they don't ever let go of that. Back to some of the reasons, they don't have clarity around what this individual would do and what is the traits and characteristics of a high achiever for that thing or for those things. They hire out of necessity and emergency and throw people into the wolves and say, whatever, I'm just going to look the other way because you're supposed to
Hire
be
their
responsible
girlfriend and
for it.
say, you can do that, type of thing, and not realize that really
Yeah,
they're not really good at that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So when you have the right talent for the right role in front of you, your confidence and ability to let go of that thing is through the roof. But most people never do because they're not clear of what or who they're looking for in the first place, let alone where they're going to find them.
Right. I imagine you get regular clients. I can just assume that the type, especially less than 2 years, that are dealing with this. Hey, I had a great month, then I don't have anything the next month. Then I have a great month, then I don't have anything the next month. What are some of the things you've seen over the years you've done that to break them of that, so they can have more consistent month after month of good production?
That takes me back to the consistency theme and why I've established things like the 5 to 25 challenge. I don't care how busy you are or not busy, everybody can make 5 contacts per day. I don't care if you're a part-time agent, a full-time mega superstar agent. You cannot convince me otherwise that every person couldn't make at least 5 contacts per day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one. Number two is, well, actually, let me use this story. So I coached a couple, Ryan and Heather Bigger, my very first year as a coach. It takes me back to the numbers because I was able to show them, instead of telling them, all I had to do was show them. So they saw it for themselves versus some guy that they thought knew better.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they were broke as a joke, living on food stamps, had every reason not to make it in this industry. Fast forward 1 year later, Ryan and Heather did $300,000 of GCI their very first year of real estate. Life has been changed ever since.
Mm-hmm.
The very first 3 months of it, goose eggs, 0 closings, 0 closings, 0 closings. And if you're only going off the lagging indicator, they would have quit. They should have quit. But the saving grace was, I remember distinctly sitting across the desk from them in a coaching conversation, and I looked at the other columns, the columns where it said number of trainings attended this week, number of contacts made this week, number of people added to my database this week. And I looked Ryan and Heather in the eye and said, do you swear and promise me that all of this is 100% accurate and true? Yes or no? And said, yes, Jake, it's true. And they were in tears. They were ready to get out. I said, Ryan and Heather, I don't know what you got to do, but I need you to figure a way, beg, borrow, and steal to stay in this business for another 3 months, because something good is about to happen based on all of this activity. And wouldn't you know it, boom, 1 closing, 2 closings, 3, 4, 5. They finished that first year with 35 closings, and several months, 6 months and beyond, they were averaging 4 and 5 closings a month.
Wow.
That is how, is showing them the scoreboard, tracking the things that matter, and being consistent on the things that are the leading indicators that generate the lagging indicators.
We're rolling up on an hour. I mean, if you got time, I mean, if you don't have a hard stop, but I want to, if you can give us the locker room, I'll say elevator speech, but it's going to go on for more than a few seconds. But what should someone who's never had a coach before, which is majority of these agents, but I guarantee the top person in the office, you ask them, they've had a coach or two. Some of them have had lifetime coaches. Some of them, again, run the value add that coach and then, change coaches. But why the importance of having a coach and what locker room is going to do for them, as it sounds like you did for this couple. And obviously your encouragement kept them in, because I mean, how many times, we were talking about something earlier and this thought came to my head, the story where the guy's in the mind and he's swinging the pitch axe one more time, and he's like, I quit. And then someone comes in and takes over and swings it twice and finds the golden nugget, right? They're just one day away, one more phone call away from changing their lives, which was really what you just told me. But give us what should someone expect when signing up in I imagine you have maybe some different programs, but you can take the route that what should someone expect if they get involved with the locker room?
So years ago, when I was first formulating the locker room, I asked myself, when somebody references the locker room, what's that word? What's that thing I want them to think of? How would we define the culture? Mm-hmm. And it literally kept me awake for 3 nights, no joke. And the one word that continued to pop in my head was collaboration. That was the word. So from day one, I have built the locker room on a culture of collaboration. It's not the Jake Dixon show. It's not one voice, but together and all these unique perspectives that are in this melting pot of our community create this culture of collaboration, right? So that is the first thing I would say. Beyond that, if you're looking for a company that values and coaches the whole person, that is us. We do not see you as a number. You are not just a production metric to us. We genuinely care about your health and well-being outside of real estate, in addition to real estate. And so we have coined the term partnership coaching. So to us, it's not just an exchange of dollars for time. It's not, all right, we're going to meet every Monday for 30 minutes and you don't get me any time in between. That's not what a partner would do. So if you're looking for a partner, a community of collaboration, we coach to the whole person, and we're not afraid to call you out on your stuff. That's what coaches do. There's going to be a whole lot of care and candor because we care more about you than we care about our relationship with you, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. And we're not afraid to say the things that probably other people in your life aren't saying or asking you. We're going to go there.
When you talked about calling you out, I imagine as we started this whole podcast, really talking about overcoming adversity and so forth. Sometimes you got to be willing to deal with some truth. It's going to make you feel uncomfortable. How do you warm up some of these people because I imagine you have some people you give an assignment to, say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Now you've got to go do this, and they don't quite do it. And that another week goes on, because I imagine you probably have fired some clients because they're just not following the process or the systems that you're engaging, that it's not going to benefit them, and it's only going to be angst for you and your coaches.
That's exactly right. So our philosophy here when it comes to that is, number one, to always seek first to understand, not judge, not show our own bias. If that person failed to do whatever it was they were supposed to do, why? Be curious, genuinely seek to understand. And if there was something legitimate that happened because life does show up, then okay, we'll talk about that. Right. But if they just didn't do it, that is then when we hold up the mirror and say, now you told me, Tracy, that was your goal. This was important to you, and here was the reason it was important to you. The audio is not exactly matching the video, because a person who says this was important to them would have stayed committed to what they said they were going to do. So I'm confused. Did this change, or what needs to happen this week so you honor that commitment now? And so that's some of the conversation that would truly
imagine
sound
make some
like.
People feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And one of the very first exercises we do with people is we make them write a success letter, an apology letter to their family. So if somebody comes to me in 6 months and says, Jake, I'm not motivated, I need to go get a real job, I'm going to say, hang on a minute. Let me get that success and apology letter out, and I need you to read that out loud back to me. And then I need you to tell me again how you're not motivated. Because when that apology letter hits them like a ton of bricks, if that doesn't get you going, something's wrong with you and your wood's wet. I don't know.
Right. You know what I would love to do if you're into it, and maybe if it's once a month or every couple of months. What I've started doing is outside. This is my formal podcast, and obviously goes out to the podcast platforms as well as the video. But what I've been doing lately is just, with some agents and some of my loan officers is, talking directly about, hey, what's going on in the market right now, what's going on in your local area, kind of do their market update for like 30 minutes, and then I'll get one of my uh, fellow loan officers on, and we'll talk about, loans. And here, I got Bloomberg on in front of me, talking about rates and all that kind of stuff, talking
Yeah.
industry jargon. But I would
Yep.
love to just, get you on, just occasionally for 30 minutes and talk about something that you guys are finding in the coaching world, challenge, what maybe something new challenge up are. Obviously, we're always dealing with, the market conditions, obviously the last year has been interest rates or whatever, the challenges that your coaching clients are having, and how you guys are helping them overcome those things, and share that, and hopefully obviously encourage more, because I'm really, think the coach, that every successful agent I've had on, they've either had a very good mentor, and they got it early, or the ones that have challenged and step out and find that coach to move to the next level in their business, someone who they can confide in, and obviously, like and trust.
Yeah, I agree. Success leaves clues, right? And
Yep.
so the answer officially is yes. I would be honored to do that. We do something similar that maybe we can swap that then, because
Mm-hmm.
we call it hot topics. Just whatever's going on in that moment. We bring in a specialist from the outside who can Q&A that with our community and stuff like that. So yes, I sign
Yeah.
me up.
We could do a multiple person virtual thing, and have a great conversation for 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keeping everyone abreast of what's going on, for sure. Um, do you have anything that we haven't? I wanted to really bring out what the locker room adds to their game. Hopefully gain some interest. Some people maybe went on your website, which is TLR, the locker room, TLRnation.com. If I'm not, am I correct? Yes. TLR Nation, like your hat there. TLR, you gonna bring me one of those hats to RE Bar Camp?
I can order you one. I don't have inventory, but I can order you one for
Okay.
sure.
But hopefully you got some interest. Is there anything you want to add? Maybe we didn't touch on during the, that you want people to know about you or the locker room.
Just an encouraging word. These things, I just enjoy giving back value to the community versus the shameless promos and plugs. But I'll leave you with two things maybe. Number one, I said this to our community this morning. You haven't come this far to only come this far. Whoever's listening to this right now and you just need a word of encouragement, just know this is a journey. Run your race. You have not come this far to only come this far. Keep going. And the last thing, to honor my alma mater and the home base of all of you being Jacksonville and University of North Florida. You know what legendary coach Dusty Rhodes, my coach, would tell us players every time we took the field. We'd huddle up before we dispersed and took our spots on the field. He said, boys, have fun, stick together, and play like champions. So,
Excellent.
ladies and gentlemen, have fun, stick together, and play like champions, just like Coach Rhodes told us at UNF. And I look forward to hopefully meeting all of you, a lot of you, at RE Bar Camp here towards the end of the month.
Excellent. Appreciate you, Jake.
Yes, sir.
All
Thank you
right.
so much for the opportunity.
No problem. Thank you.